Okay, let's
So we're going to start this.
go. Let's do it.
So, what is it with the value of air-cooled cars in the last couple of years?
The value.
And you know, the two of you guys are much more, into the market than we are. But
Yeah.
I think people finally figured out that they're not going to make them anymore.
it's like
It took them a while, but I think
it's like real estate. It's like real estate, right?
Yeah.
Well, why are condos? Why is land getting more expensive? Well, there's no more of it.
there's no more. Yeah.
Well, I think that's part of it. I think the other part is the latest generation of people that are now getting into the swing of things. You know, they're making good money now. You know, some of these guys are in that 40, 50 range, and the new classic is, these cars from the 70s and 80s and stuff like that. Now, I know air-cooled goes back a little bit farther than that.
But the core of the collector car market has always been take a 50-year-old guy and figure out what was on his wall when he was 60. Right?
Exactly, right? Like, I'm not quite 50 yet, but you know what I mean? Like, I definitely know that there was a 930, cutaway that I had on my
The David Kimball cutaway.
And, I've always loved that car, right? And now, certain people my age are in a position where, the third, fourth, or fifth car in the stable can be exactly that, right? So,
are you finding that people are keeping these as sort of toy cars when they're buying them, or driving them?
I
Or are
think
they too valuable now to
I think people, our cars have the brand itself has gained a lot of popularity in the last 4 or 5 years. The brand itself has been attracting a lot of new buyers and new people to the brand, and with that, they basically says, that those older cars are really cool looking. Like, not that our new cars aren't bad, but these old ones are definitely real cool looking and real cool cars. And if you think back when these cars were built and how far back they were like way ahead of their time as far as
They still are ahead of their time.
technology and the theory from Porsche, right?
Like, you put a 964 on a hoist, right? And that was, those cars are now 25 years old. They had flat underbodies, they had active aero, they had all of this stuff that new cars still don't have.
everything except for the engine still in the wrong place.
Yeah, exactly.
Still hanging too far off the back.
I agree with John. I think the brand is definitely gained in popularity. The
The
success
sales numbers are huge, right?
The success figures that you guys are doing out of your store and what Porsche is doing as a whole is just like it seems like they can't do anything wrong these days. That being said, a 930 or any old 911 for that matter still just represents a car that looks old, but still runs very well. It's got decent power, the brakes are decent, everything is kind of good. When you look at some older muscle cars and stuff, and I don't want to offend anybody who's into muscle cars, I have my limits with some American cars.
Right?
Or Italian cars. Like, I remember, we just got a Countach over there, obviously, and I remember the first time I drove one. I was working valet at North 44, which is this restaurant in Yonge and Eglinton. Super high-end posh, and I was driving an 83 Rabbit LS at the time. That was my personal car. And I got into this Countach, and I'm trying to find the gear in this thing, and the whole pedal cluster's moving as I push the clutch in, and I can hardly turn the wheel, and I'm like, this is a piece of shit, right? But that's not what it's about, right? It's just about the symbolism of that car, right?
Yeah.
What it represented, right?
Well, I think what people are coming to the realization with air-cooled 911s is that they're old cars and they have that kind of cool factor that old cars have, but they're also actually still a nice car to drive around. Yeah.
And that's, I think, the key, right? I think that's what it is. You look at some of these older cars and they look fantastic. They have all the guts that make you think that this car should drive relatively well, and then you get behind the wheel and it's loose, it's tough, the clutch weighs, 60 pounds, you're like pulling on the steering wheel to get the clutch down in and shift the gear. Whereas you get into a 911, and even if it's got a bit of a tired 915 transmission like a pre-87 car, it's still somewhat fluid. If you learn the car, it can drive smoothly. You know what I mean? The steering's not heavy. It's reasonable.
That's part of the satisfaction, though, and I think that's why people kind of like these cars, is that especially relative to new cars, is that there's still that element of, not challenge is the wrong word, right? But it's like, okay, I still have to learn this car, and if I can get good at driving it, it's like a badge of honor. It's like, okay, I can drive a 911 at a decent clip.
Yeah, it's civilized, but you can still feel connected to the car.
Yeah.
Like even in the old ones, they're all mechanical brakes, mechanical steering,
Yeah.
but you don't feel like you're driving a dump truck.
Yeah.
Like you still have that connected feel no matter how you're driving it, whether or not it's at the limit or just cruising around town. It's still a comfortable car to drive.
That's one of the keys about them, is that they're fun to drive slow, right? Like you drive a modern sports car, you drive a modern 911, or you drive a McLaren or whatever, and you have to be going so fast to feel kind of like you're trying, right? Whereas you drive, your car or my car, and you're going like 70 kilometers an hour around an on-ramp. It's really exciting.
Oh yeah, it's hilarious. You don't have to be going fast. You don't have to push the car even to 2/3 of its limit, and you're still enjoying it.
Yeah, well, relatively speaking now, right?
Yeah.
Like, the cars are, they're pretty slow, right?
Yeah,
Let's be
I've
honest.
been on track in mine,
they're
and
slow
it's like
cars.
going
They're
down the
not
back
fast.
straight going, okay,
that
can you please go
E30
faster?
M3 over there, like, when we got it, I was still hoping that when I put my foot down and it got into the, to the higher part of the revs, like it was going to generate some kind of pull, but like I was like, wow, this thing is flat, man. But that's not really what it's about. It was what it could be at the time. It's still a pretty sexy engine, you know what I mean? That one in particular, you know what I mean? But it's not what it's about. This day and age, the speed limits, everything, we have to sort of abide by the rules. I don't think power is really what you're after. I think it's like just something with character and personality, I guess.
And there's not much more, there isn't a car with a lot more personality than 911. Like it smells funny, it sounds funny, the pedals are positioned funny, the steering wheel's positioned funny, everything, the engine's in the wrong place. Like it's got a lot
Everything's
of
wrong.
character.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense when you look at it.
The AC hardly works, the heat hardly works.
So, but why have they gotten so expensive in the last couple of years? I mean, yeah, okay, people have come to the realization that they're not making them anymore, but there's got to be something else, right? Because we knew 5 years ago that they weren't making them anymore. We knew 15 years ago that they weren't making them.
You know what? That question is, I guess for me, the first air-cooled car I went hard with that I got into inventory was, remember that white turbo I got? The 92?
Yep.
So it was a 92 turbo. It was an original car that we sold from our dealer in Newmarket. 964 turbo. It was a 92. It was white on black. It belonged to a good customer who still buys a new white turbo with us every time a new generation comes out.
Wow.
Okay. The car had been modified slightly, whatever, but it came back and, it was relatively close to normal. It was in really good shape, and I was like, you know what? I gave the guy a wholesale value that a lot of people would have said at the time, that's a little crazy. Yeah. And I was like, I believe in this car. Yeah. I think it's special, and I think it's not around often enough anymore, and it does represent a time of a full rear-wheel drive, turbocharged 911.
And it's still a pretty raw car.
And it's a raw car, but I'm a 964 fan. I love the modernized bumpers with the classic old look. It's just my favorite generation. So to me, it just said everything I needed. It was short of a 3.6 turbo. It was like
okay. We'll get there.
Okay. And so I was like, I went to market, I think high 70s with the car. And sure enough, a lot of bad emails came through. You guys are crazy, this, that, the other. And I was like, whatever, you know what I mean? I believe in my car. And then slowly but surely, the emails went from negative to positive. And I was like, is it still available? Whatever. We even had a guy come up from Florida to look at it. And, you know what I mean? He didn't really enjoy the modifications that were done to it, which are subtle, but still there. And I can understand. And then we had a guy from Vancouver who just called up and said, I want the car, I want it now, no questions asked, and he still has it now, and he's loving every minute.
The market for these cars is international now, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
But North America itself is, I could see in the last 3 years, it's been, the popularity of the air-cooled has grown dramatically, and there's cars coming from overseas here, and there's stuff being imported from everywhere, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, now that they're a certain age, it's also a lot easier to
Bring
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, this Carrera RS over here, in another year and a half, that car is going to be able to go to the U.S. finally.
Right.
And you know, what's that gonna do to values? You know, there's only 2,000 of these ever made.
Yeah.
Who knows what's gonna happen?
So maybe what you do is you just buy as many of them as you can and you sit on them.
Kind of what's happening in here.
Yeah. Do you regret selling yours?
My
Your Carrera. You had a.
yeah, I had an '87 Carrera. Well, at the time, it was my only car.
Yeah.
So I bought an '87 G50 Carrera, factory limited slip.
What year did you buy?
So I bought that car in '06.
Okay.
I bought it in March of '06.
Yeah.
And I remember I paid 27 grand for it. I bought it from MVL. And my brother said, "You're crazy." Billy, yeah, you're crazy. And I was like, I can't. It's like perfect. Had 8s and 9s on it, Fuchsias.
Oh, man.
Like it was everything.
Yeah.
The only thing I didn't like is the guy put a turbo whale tail in the back, and I would have just liked to have the T-tray on there, but whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't end up changing it. But
Yeah.
anyway, so I drove it for that summer. And then I was like, you know what? It only had 80,000 kilometers on it. I was driving it daily. And I was like, I'm killing this car. I'm not in a position in my life to own this. And so I put it for sale. I put it up for $34,000, and my phone would not stop ringing. And this back in 2006 now.
Wow.
What do I think that car would be worth today? And why would I regret it? I guess maybe I should have just took a loan out and got something else. Yeah, I think potentially with that kind of mileage, I think it'd be about a $65,000, $70,000 car.
Yeah.
It was a original Canadian car, original paint, original everything. It was
What? So, I mean, there's still a range of values for every generation. What's important? What makes makes one car more valuable than another?
That's a tough one
Yeah.
for me.
It's, I think the rarity of the car.
Oh, for
Like-
sure. Yeah.
Like we know that there's, in late 993 bodies, there was a lot of cabs that were produced.
Mhm.
And I think it seems like the factory had pre-ordered all these roofs or something because it seemed like, they knew that there
Just
were.
like with navigation systems.
Yeah,
It's like
well-
I got to work my way through these
They-
$250,000 navigation systems before I can put a modern one in.
Yeah, they knew they were going to change bodies, so they figured, you know what, let's produce all these cabs because there's a lot of cabs, and right now coupes are more rare, and they're
Yeah.
pulling big money, whether it's a C2 coupe, C4, or 4S, or whatever,
Yeah.
and turbos especially. It's that sort of car is pulling big money, right? So the rarity of the car,
Of the specific
a specific
variant.
variance of that car,
Yeah.
makes the dollar figure like go crazy, right?
How important is originality?
Well, listen, originality is important. If you can find one that's been tucked away since day one, that's a different story. But like all our cars, we're used to having refreshes on the front clip because
Yeah.
of stone chips and
Yeah.
road rash and stuff like that. We're used to that. I have 991s that come in that we have to do that too, that
Sure.
got 10,000 kilometers on it. So as long as it's just paintwork, I think is not an issue,
Yeah.
not a big issue. But obviously, if it's all original, it's always a better story.
Mhm.
But to Porsche guys, I think we're used to finding a little bit of paintwork.
There's, to have a car survive
That
20,
long.
25 years, and if let's say it's got some mileage on it too, because it's a bit of a driver.
Mhm. Well,
You
I think
know-
that's one of the attractions of these cars. is
Well,
that
you know,
wanna drive
I
them.
had a conversation once with a good customer of ours, and we were talking about 3.6 turbos, and I don't mean to get to that part of the conversation.
Yeah.
right, 'cause I know we're gonna talk on that, but we were just talking about it, and I know of one that I've been trying to buy for the last 2 years,
I think it's probably the same one that I know of.
and
It's blue. Yeah.
no, this one's black.
Okay.
I know the blue one that you're
Yeah,
talking
I know
about.
the blue one.
And I'm not going to mention the name of the guy with the black one because I don't want anybody else hearing it. However, so this car is a sub 30,000 kilometer Canadian
Oh my
Pfaff car.
gosh.
Wow. Okay? Serviced at Pfaff forever.
Religiously.
So everything is right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, we
Stacks of records.
we threw
right?
numbers
Hold on,
out.
let me get.
Yeah, you can look up the service records.
We threw numbers around.
Yeah.
And I threw numbers that were obviously very high because I think it's a completely irreplaceable car.
Yeah.
And one thing that
And
I
it
will
wasn't a
say
movie.
is
Yeah.
every 964 3.6 turbo I see that coming out of the US,
Yeah,
it could
yeah.
be the right black, but they always have the supple leather seats, non-sport.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sorry, that for me is
That
a deal
kills it.
breaker.
Yeah.
If I'm going to spend the money, it's got to be exactly what I want.
Yeah.
So we talked about numbers, and you know what? He understood why I was saying the numbers that I was saying, which are obviously very high. But at the same time, he goes, you know what? I would rather get a car with 120,000 kilometers on it, pay half that,
Yeah.
and
Just
drive it.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of when I was shopping. I mean, I came and looked at that red 964 that you had, that you'd done all the work to, and I spent essentially a year looking for a car, and I just sort of came to the point where I'm like, you know what? If I buy a perfect car, I'm not going to drive it, and so I found one with relatively high miles. At the time I thought I overpaid for it, but I'm like, you know what? Otherwise the car is nice. It was an original Pfaff car back from 1994, and now I just drive it, and it's cosmetically it's not 100% perfect, but it drives great.
I think that's the best.
And
way to buy it.
that's what I think determines the value.
Yeah.
A lot of customers, they want to drive it. So the
Yeah.
high mile, and you know what? Frankly, with high miles, with 911s, let's be
No big
honest,
deal.
they're all going to suffer the same fate. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if
Yeah.
it's got 10,000 kilometers or 180,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
That engine's going to leak. It's going to need a reseal.
Yeah.
All that stuff's going to happen.
We were
So,
joking that if it
you
was
know,
dry, there's something wrong.
you know what?
Oh,
Obviously,
well,
honestly,
Yeah.
I lived my entire service career with Porsche
Yeah.
through 996.
Yeah.
And obviously, we all know about what happened with 996 and 997.
Yeah.
You know what? The cars that didn't break were the cars that were driven hard and the cars that had high miles.
Yeah.
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 Exactly.
Yeah. It's a fair point.
And I think that goes to show you where the engineering mind of Porsche is in terms of building this car. Well, we're going to build it to be beaten.
Yes.
And that's how it's going to survive. And it was always the super low mileage ones that would have intermediate shaft fail or cylinder wall failure or whatever.
Yeah.
It was never the high mileage
Yeah.
hard driven cars.
Even my 77, it's got 170,000 miles on it now.
Yeah.
Drives perfectly.
Yeah.
It never hesitates to start. It runs perfectly.
Yeah.
And again,
And
you
obviously,
don't-
that's going to determine your value, right?
Yeah.
It's going to only be worth so much with that kind of mileage. Is it ever going to be worth nothing? No, it's always going to be worth something for sure. But when you're talking about that sub 100,000 K car,
Yeah.
full original paint, like everything's documented, like the pedigree of a car is determined by so many different factors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I just bought an 85 cab right now.
Yeah.
It's got 173,000 kilometers on it, but it's a
That's
very
got a
rare
history.
color combination.
Okay.
Marble gray on
Oh, marble gray is a great color.
blue interior. And it's a Pfaff car. You open up the booklet, HJ himself wrote out all the warranty information and everything,
That is pretty cool.
right? It's got 178K, but every service record is there.
Yeah.
Like to me, that is worth money.
Yeah, it's worth more than a car with lower miles, but maybe a spot.
But like I had an 89 cab that I sold last year. Very, very nice car.
Yeah.
Very nice car. And I asked what was reasonable for the mileage that it stipulated on it, but I didn't have a lot of background to support the actual mileage. It looked to be original, and the car was really, really nice.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? I think we sold this for somewhere in the 50s.
Yeah.
If it was a fully documented car, like all the way through back then, I think it would have been worth $20,000 more. For
Right.
sure.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's amazing what people pay for paperwork.
It means a lot. It tells the
When you
story.
think about it, it's a-
The
Yeah, once a
story
car is old, the story is everything.
is the
Yeah,
most beautiful
100%.
part, right?
Yeah,
Like,
the DNA's there, like with the services and people that are buying these cars understand that you have to find the car has to have a booklet that goes with it, like a booklet of all the
Or a
service.
box. With
Or a
all
box.
this-
Yeah, the
Yeah.
difference over.
Yeah.
And that's what they look for. The real enthusiast buyer looks for, the deep record.